Okay, so I'm not gonna be like every other YouTuber out here saying Raw was trash. Now, I came into Raw thinking that, okay, yeah, Raw gonna be garbage because we've been getting garbage Raws. You know, so I didn't have an expectation of Raw being good. But I'm not gonna even say Raw was good. I'm gonna just say Raw was decent. You know, this is what Raw should be, you know, every night. You know, Raw shouldn't be something that you're falling asleep to all the time. You know, but you know, I'm gonna try to go through it, but I'm not about to do a full breakdown of every segment, right? Which, you know, we started out with Roman and Jacob Fatu. You know, I guess this is their way of trying to capture every little bit of the fans to just, you know, get them in. It's not the last segment. So, essentially, it seems like Roman just couldn't get the upper hand on Jacob Fatu by itself. You know, it had to be the OG bloodline beating up Jacob Fatu. And Jacob Fatu was like, I'm not going to say no selling moves, but they're trying to hype, or maybe I could use this word. Maybe they're trying to give Jacob Fatu durability for him to be a monster. You know, they're trying to up that part of him. The problem is Jacob Fatu isn't a Kane. He isn't an Obafemi. You know, Jacob Fatu is relatively still small. You know, I'm not going to say he's a Taz, but, you know, he's not a Braun Strowman, but hey, he picked up Bronson Reed and hit that Samoan drop on him and, you know, popped him up and did it. I mean, we going to give Jacob Fatu his props, but I don't know, something about Jacob Fatu, his stature doesn't give off, I'm a monster. You know, I think Jacob Fatu essentially would be the top mid-carder. But they're trying to put Jacob Fatu in that main event spot, and you know, I don't know, something about him, it's not giving monster. Kane was monster. Big Show was like monster. You know, Braun Strowman was monster. Obafemi could be a believable monster. Brock could be a monster. You know, Obafemi is just a smaller guy. You know, that's just the way I'm seeing it. But man, they basically beat the dog crap out of Jacob Fatu because they had to jump him. You know, Roman did like 3 punches. Usos did like 3 super kicks. The D1, the spear. You know, and Jacob Fatu still, you know, managed to get the mic and challenge him. But my thing is, okay, Adam Pearce, you wanted to fire Jacob Fatu. Why? You know, like, let these people fight. Now, he put his hands on you and all of that, but Randy Orton didn't get fired, and he RKO'd the SmackDown GM like 20 times. It's like, I don't know. Honestly, you should have I don't know who's writing this stuff, man, but it would have almost been nice to actually see Jacob get fired or something, and then, you know, knock out the GM, have him out of commission, and, you know, you could have brought in a guest star or something. Like, there's ways to do this stuff if you want TKO to bring, you know, outside people there. But I digress. I mean, after seeing what we saw today, I mean, Roman really, I mean, it's believable he could beat Jacob, but Jacob started playing into that, hey, if you hit the Samoan in the head, it doesn't have an effect. And I mean, they're building Jacob up, but at this point, I mean, Roman versus Jacob one more time. If the bloodline doesn't get involved, Roman should just drop it. They're booking himself into a corner again. Roman should just drop it. Drop the belt to Jacob Fatu. But then what does that say for LA Knight and stuff like that? So, going forward, give the belt to Jacob, I guess. Have LA Knight, beat Jacob? If Roman can't beat Jacob, how in the world LA Knight could? See, that's how they booking themselves into a corner. But whatever, you got Jacob Fatu, Roman Reigns, Tribal Combat. I think what it is in Italy, Paris, somewhere. I forgot where they at. Now, the next match, Finn Balor and JD McDonough in a street fight. Please stop calling this a street fight. Now, if they wanted to go around the arena, you might could get away with it. But just call it a hardcore match or an Extreme Rules match. It's not a street fight. But, if I have to give this match some stars, hey, I would honestly give this match a 7 out of 10 for what it was on Raw. No one's bleeding anymore unless it's a mistake. But Finn and JD, they're good wrestlers. And they put on a performance, Judgment Day. They did their thing. They tried to cheat. It didn't work. They had some cool reversals, cool moves. 7 out of 10. Ain't nothing else to talk about. Then you had Sol Ruka, challenged the Intercontinental Champion, Becky Lynch. At this point, I think Becky Lynch is just in the business. She wants to see other people win too. So Becky may drop the belt to Sol Ruka. Becky and Sol Ruka is probably going to have a good match. Liv and Sol Ruka had a good match. I can see them having a good match right here. Now, the next match, which is going to be slept on, and I mean, I am sick of the El Grande stuff, but, Chad Gable's faction of the El Grandes are good. Ludwig Kaiser faction, they're pretty good. And the crazy part is the El Grande Americano, they put on this so-called luchador match, but it had a different effect because it was good, but it wasn't the typical style of your luchadors because they're not luchadors. So, I don't know. It had that effect. It's like, okay, I'm watching these luchadors, but this isn't AAA. They're all not skinny nobodies, flippy dippy stuff. And it didn't look like it was the art form that is luchadors. It wasn't that art form. It was them like hitting their moves and stuff, getting their stuff in. But luchadors has a certain flow of it. Kind of like Ultimo Dragon. He's from Japan, but he trained in Mexico. And that's why his Japanese style stuff looks a little different. But this match actually was good. I was surprised. I mean, they actually put on a good show. They really put on a good show, and I'm not going to give... this was a fun match. I can't give it a 10 out of 10, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10. You know, some people might give it a 10 out of 10 if they true wrestling fans. If you are somebody that's like a super AAA fan, you would probably give it a 10, but just because how different it was. Like, it was entertaining to watch. Like, if you're a real wrestling fan and you saw this match, you would probably give it a 10 out of 10. Something about it is just holding me back from giving it a 10 out of 10. I don't know what it is, but I just can't. I can't give it a 10 out of 10. Maybe because it was on Raw. Maybe if this match was like the opener of WrestleMania or something, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. But for the most part, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. That might sound crazy, but you got to take the hater. You got to stop drinking the haterade and just enjoy the match. Now, next you had Paige and Brie Bella versus Roxanne Perez and Raquel. Typical Raw nonsense. You know, this match, I'm just going to say it's okay. It's just like Paige and Roxanne, not Roxanne, Paige and Brie Bella is, they bring that old, I can't even call it old school, that Divas era wrestling. And it's okay to see. Like, just because I kind of grew up on that, it's okay to see. But that diva style wrestling just cannot keep up with the Roxanne Perez's and the Raquel Rodriguez. It's not blending good. It's, you know, they just not doing certain stuff, and you know, it's, I don't know what to call it. You know, Naomi kind of lived through that too, but Naomi adapted. You know, next, you know, I ain't gonna even say next. I mean, you had Bayley and Lakir and Lyra run in. It's like, we are sick of this women's brawling, no story having nonsense. You know, Bayley, go back to being a singles wrestler. Lyra, go back to being a singles wrestler. But Triple H has nothing. You know, why are we not getting I mean, I guess you could have, you know, your Sol Ruka and Becky, but give us some triple threats. Give us a fatal 4-way, you know, since you have all of these women. You know, you should be using them. You know, you got all these women wrestlers, but you use the same 8 women on both shows every single time. When Becky could be running through single matches and all these women could be running through single matches. You know, Becky could be fighting somebody new each week. Or Becky could have a month program with a new women's wrestler each week. That's not hard to do. But these people have been fighting each other for like 9 months straight. You know, you Bayley getting her check, but it's like, come on. I mean, Lyra is good too. But this tag team brawling is sickening. Then Brock Lesnar comes back and gave Obafemi like 5 F5s. Like, the first 2 barely took him out. Like, this is just, you know, it was shocking. It was shocking to see Brock Lesnar on Raw. Now you have to watch Raw because stuff like this will happen. It's fine Brock Lesnar came back on Raw because it was unexpected. The problem with this is Brock Lesnar gave Obafemi 5 F5s, but he should have, you know, beat him up to the point where you put Oba out of commission to get him off of TV. You know, that Oba Femi challenge was fake. Like, I'm not going to say fake. It was a bad idea. You know, it was a bad idea because the only person that could actually challenge Oba is Brock. Or Roman. You know, a top guy. Seth. Gunther. But you booked him in this corner. So now Brock comes back. Now Brock has to win because he came back. You know, Brock should have stayed gone because you had the perfect retirement. You got beat by Oba. You put Oba over so well. Then Paul Heyman cut a promo on you. You know, but now you came back to attack Oba, but you didn't take him out. Now what's the next goal? You know, you beat Oba, now what? You're gonna run it back for a third time at WrestleMania and then really retire? Like, you know, so now you messed up your retirement. You know, I don't care how much money Triple H, you know, paid you, or maybe you had to come back, something like that. But you messed it up. Now you attacked Oba. You gave him 5 F5s. You know, can you do those same 5 F5s when the match start? You know, you got manhandled by Oba. You lost. You put somebody over. We loved it. And now you attacked Oba. When all you had to do, Triple H, was to let Brock retire, let Oba make an appearance once a month until the King of the Ring tournament starts, and make Oba King of the Ring. You had one job. And now you bring Brock Lesnar back. And now you're going to have to make Brock attack him in a way where this turns into cage matches, or Hell in a Cell, you know, something like that. Because why would you just come back to attack Oba? Like, it was a fair competition. No one cheated. None of that. It was just beast versus beast. And it was perfect. And Brock retired. I mean, it was perfect. Like, you couldn't write a better story. You know, it didn't even have a story, but it was, you know, it was the type of dream match that Triple H thinks about. Let's give them no story and a fair competition. That's what Triple H writes. Mutual respect. And I think they had that, you know, with the challenge, and now he flushed that down the drain. But, you know, when Brock come, you're happy to see him. And then you had Seth Rollins defeating Austin Theory. Of course he's going to defeat Austin Theory. You know, like, what did they expect? But then you got the Street Profits jumping in the nonsense. Braun Breaker, you know, he's still beefing with Seth. You know, they have been beefing for over a year now. Like, we had Seth versus Braun already. Like, I don't know how long they're going to keep this up. They're going to probably keep this up forever. You know, this is just, you know, the Street Profits finally getting a little shine, but is this the shine the Street Profits want? And Angelo Dawkins, I'm sorry, you cannot act. You were talking to Seth. Y'all had a segment in the back talking to Seth, and that looked very rehearsed, and I don't know what to say. I did not like that segment. You know, Montez has a little flair in it. You know, Montez, you know, he's going out there showing what he could do. I don't want to give up on the Street Profits, but I don't see this coming. I don't see it getting a big push. I think Montez is here until Bianca has that baby. And then the Usos and the Street Profits are probably going to take a back seat. That's what I'm thinking. And once Naomi dropped that baby, Jimmy Uso's gone for at least a month. Once Bianca has that baby, Montez Ford is gone for at least a month. Simple as that. Raw sucks, but this week, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Of course, what helped is I watched it an hour later so I could skip through the commercials, fast forward through some of the boring parts on the matches, and that's how I got to my 7 out of 10. El Grande match, I didn't even skip through none of that. I skipped the intros, but other than that, Raw was a solid 6.5. I'll even go to a 7 just because of Brock. Brock threw it up to that 7. That's about it. That's about it. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Was Raw good or was Raw hot garbage still?